The emergency line opened with a small click. For half a second, there was only warehouse noise. A fan turned somewhere in the dark building. Then a man said, "We need an ambulance." His voice was steady. Not steady like trained. Steady like he had practiced being steady. The dispatcher asked for the address. He gave it clearly. No stumble, no breath catching, no second voice in the background asking what happened. He said an employee had fallen near the loading bay. He said there was blood. He said the injured man was not responding. The dispatcher kept typing. Her screen filled with clean lines of information. Address, gate number, possible head injury, unconscious adult male. Everything sounded useful. Everything sounded controlled. Then she asked the caller to check for breathing. There was a pause. It lasted just long enough to feel like movement. Then the man returned. "His breathing," he said. His voice had not changed. No strain, no shifting air, no distance from the phone. The dispatcher looked at the timer. The call had lasted 42 seconds. Only then did the comm begin to feel wrong. By 6:18 a.m., Daniel Hart was inside the loading bay. He worked safety for the distribution company, not police, not management. His job was colder and less satisfying. He measured what people forgot to measure. The ambulance had already gone. A wet orange cone marked the place where paramedics had knelt. Two supervisors stood near the dock door. Neither spoke until Daniel opened his clipboard. The official shape of the morning was already forming. A night shift picker had slipped while moving pallets. A coworker had found him quickly. The call had been calm because the coworker had done the right thing. Daniel wanted to believe that. Calm employees saved time. Clear information saved lives. Panic made accidents worse. He had taught that in training rooms for years. So at first, nothing felt sinister. It felt like a bad floor, a rushed shift, and one employee with unusual control. Daniel photographed the concrete. He logged the scuff mark near the pallet jack. He wrote, "Fall consistent with wet surface." Then he stopped. The sentence looked reasonable. Reasonable sentences had fooled him before. The first interview happened in the break room. The caller's name was Marcus. He sat upright, hands wrapped around a paper cup. He looked tired, but not evasive. Daniel asked him to start at the beginning. Marcus said he was checking the late pallet count. He heard a crash near Bay 4. He found Ryan on the floor beside the pallet jack. There was blood near the back of Ryan's head. Marcus said he called emergency services immediately. He said he followed the dispatcher's instructions. He checked breathing. He stayed nearby until the paramedics arrived. The story had shape. It had timing. It had the clean order of a good witness. Daniel wrote without interrupting. People often sounded strange after accidents. Shock did not always look like panic. Sometimes it looked like politeness. Sometimes it looked like a man answering every question carefully. Marcus rubbed his thumb along the cup seam. He only did it when Daniel paused. The gesture seemed small enough to ignore. The supervisors wanted the form finished. The floor needed reopening. The official version was simple: a slip, a fall, a fast call. For 20 minutes it held. Daniel asked for the emergency recording. The dispatcher sent it before lunch. He played it once on his office speaker. Then he played it again through headphones. At first, the call supported Marcus. The address was correct. The gate number matched the ambulance report. The breathing check came when the dispatcher ordered it. Nothing was missing in the obvious places. Then Daniel heard the quiet part. When Marcus said he was beside Ryan, his voice stayed close. When he said he was checking breathing, his voice stayed close. The microphone never shifted against fabric. His words did not thin with distance. There was no scrape of a shoe, no change in room echo. That could still be explained. Some people hold the phone close while kneeling. Some warehouses swallow small sounds. Daniel wrote both possibilities in the margin. He did not want another false alarm. Years earlier, he had dismissed a worker's warning as nerves. The machine failed 2 days later. Now he listened a third time. Marcus sounded helpful, but he sounded helpful from one fixed place. Daniel gave the call the fairest reading first. Marcus may have been unusually composed. He may have kept the phone near his mouth. He may have followed instructions without speaking through effort. That version still made sense. Daniel went back to the loading bay with his phone. He stood where Marcus said he had stood. Then he walked the route to Ryan's marked position. 8 steps, a turn around a pallet stack, one low metal rail near the dock plate. Daniel called his own voicemail and repeated Marcus' words. At the rail, his voice changed. Not dramatically, just enough. Breath shortened. The room opened around the microphone. His shoes clicked once on the concrete. When he knelt, his jacket brushed the phone. The sound was small, but it existed. Daniel stood and replayed the test. It proved nothing alone. People move differently. Phones sit differently in different hands. Still, the official version lost its clean edge. Marcus had described motion. The recording carried almost none. Daniel looked back across the bay. The path was short. That made the silence harder, not easier. Daniel brought Marcus back after the lunch break. This time, he left the recorder visible. Marcus noticed it and nodded once. His cup was gone. His hands rested flat on the table. Daniel asked him to describe the breathing check again. Marcus answered before the question fully settled. I put 2 fingers near his nose. He touched 2 fingers to his own upper lip. Then he lowered his hand. Daniel marked the gesture in the margin. A minute later, Daniel asked where the blood was. Marcus touched the same 2 fingers to his lip again. This time, it made no sense. The question had nothing to do with breathing. Marcus kept talking. Behind his head, close to the drain, his voice stayed smooth. His hand returned to the table. Daniel let the silence sit. Marcus looked toward the closed door. Then Daniel asked who else was nearby. The 2 fingers rose again. They stopped just below his nose, only for a second. Then Marcus said, "Nobody close enough to help." Daniel wrote nothing for 3 beats. The gesture was small. The room stayed calm, but one movement had begun repeating when the story tightened. Daniel did not treat the gesture as proof. That would have been too easy. Nervous people repeat movements. Witnesses touch their faces when recalling stress. A man who had checked for breathing might replay the action. The interpretation almost worked. Marcus had been close to an injured coworker. He had smelled blood, rubber, and floor cleaner. His body may have kept returning to that moment. Daniel had seen it before. After accidents, people acted out fragments. A driver pressed invisible brakes under a desk. A packer kept wiping non-existent dust from her sleeve. Memory was not just a file. It lived in muscles. So Daniel wrote a careful note. Repeated breathing check gesture during stress points. Not deception, not guilt, just stress. The supervisors liked that version. It kept the morning ordinary. It kept the paperwork moving. Daniel almost accepted it. Then he watched the interview again. The gesture did not appear when Marcus described finding Ryan. It did not appear when he mentioned blood. It appeared only when Daniel asked about gaps, who was nearby, what he touched, when he moved. The gesture was not tied to trauma. It was tied to difficult parts of the story. Daniel pulled the access logs next. They were not dramatic. Just gray entries in a security portal, badge swipes, door releases, dock sensors. Marcus said he heard the crash from ISIL 7. Then he said he reached Ryan within seconds. The logs did not break that claim. They only made it narrower. The side door near aisle 7 opened at 5:41. The dock door sensor changed at 5:44. The emergency call began at 5:46. It was tight, but possible. Then Daniel checked the camera map. Bay 4 had a blind spot. Everyone knew that. But the aisle before it did not. At 5:45, Marcus appeared on camera. He was not running. He was standing beside the time clock, phone already in his hand. Daniel watched the clip twice. Marcus looked down at the screen. Then he looked toward the bay. Then he placed 2 fingers under his nose, the same gesture. There was no injured man beside him. No dispatcher on the line yet, no breathing check to replay. The stress explanation collapsed quietly. Daniel closed the video window. The official version still stood, but now it stood on borrowed time. Daniel sent the call to a former dispatcher named Lena. She did not diagnose people by tone. She hated when others tried. Calm can be real, she said. Then she played the recording through a small speaker. She stopped at the breathing check. People think panic is the only useful signal, she said. In reality, movement changes a voice faster than fear does. She tapped the desk with 1 finger. A phone near a mouth catches breath, cloth, turns, steps. A body lowering to the floor changes the sound path. Even calm people cannot remove physics. They can control words. They cannot fully control distance. Daniel listened again. Marcus said he was moving. The recording sounded like he was not. Lena did not call it a lie. She called it a mismatch. That word mattered. A lie required intent. A mismatch only required comparison. And comparison was Daniel's job. The official version had survived emotion. It had survived memory. It had survived one nervous gesture. But it could not survive the simplest test. A man claimed action. The phone recorded stillness. Daniel printed the call transcript. Then he printed still frames from the time clock camera. The case was no longer about why Marcus sounded calm. It was about why he needed calm to cover silence. By mid-afternoon, management wanted closure. The injured worker was alive but critical. The night shift was already short. A stopped loading bay cost money every hour. Daniel sat across from the plant manager. He laid out the call transcript. He laid out the still frames. He did not use the word deception. He said the timeline needed protection. The manager rubbed both eyes. "You have a bad feeling," she said. "No," Daniel said. "I have mismatched records." That changed the room. Feelings could be dismissed. Records had to be explained. The manager asked what he wanted. Daniel asked for the bay to stay closed. He asked for the raw camera files. He asked for Marcus access to be paused. The manager looked through the glass wall. Marcus was standing near the lockers. He looked calm from there too. One supervisor shook his head. He said Daniel was making it worse. Maybe he was. If Marcus had only misremembered, this would hurt him. If Marcus had hidden something, waiting would help him. Daniel signed the hold order. The clean accident report stopped moving. For the first time, the official version had consequences. The raw files arrived after 4 p.m. Daniel watched them without sound. Sound had already given him enough trouble. At 5:39, Ryan crossed the corner camera alone. He carried a handheld scanner. At 5:41, the side door opened. Marcus entered from the exterior corridor. That still fit the official version. He could have heard the crash after that. He could have walked toward the bay. Then Daniel slowed the next clip. Ryan appeared again, lower in the frame. He was not walking normally. He held one hand against the racking. His scanner dangled from its strap. No one else appeared. At 5:44, the dock sensor changed. At 5:45, Marcus stood at the time clock, phone in hand, 2 fingers near his nose. Daniel wrote the times in a column. The story began to bend. Marcus might not have caused the injury. That mattered. The evidence did not show an attack. It showed something colder, a delay, a separation, a decision made before the emergency call. Daniel checked the floor plan. The bay, the clock, and the blind spot made a triangle. Marcus had not described that triangle. He had described one straight line. That was the new shape of the case. Not a fall discovered quickly. A fall discovered early, then explained late. Daniel returned to Bay 4 before the evening shift. The building sounded different when held closed. No forklifts, no scanner beeps, only the exhaust fan turning above the dock. Earlier, that silence had seemed useful. A quiet scene meant no crowd, no confusion, no interference. Now it meant something else. It meant Ryan had been alone. Daniel stood at the time clock. From there, Bay 4 was partly hidden. A person could look toward it without entering. A person could wait there and still hear the fan. He walked to the drain. The wet patch had a sharp edge now. Cleaning fluid had dried around old tire dust. The scuff mark did not point toward the pallet jack. It pointed toward the low rail. Daniel crouched beside it. Ryan had likely stumbled there first. Maybe he caught the rack. Maybe he tried to stand. Maybe he was still conscious for part of the delay. That possibility changed the room. People think silence after an accident means control. In reality, silence can mean no one is close enough to react. The clean call had hidden that absence. Marcus had not filled the gap with noise. He had filled it with order, address, gait, breathing, useful words, placed exactly where missing minutes should have been. Marcus changed his account after the second camera angle. He did not confess all at once. He corrected one detail, then another. He said he had seen Ryan before calling. He said Ryan was sitting up then. He said Ryan waved him away. That version almost worked too. People refuse help after head injuries. They can seem alert while getting worse. Daniel let the correction stand for a moment. Then he placed the time clock still beside it. At 5:45, Marcus was not helping. He was checking his phone. At 5:46, he called. At no point did the recording show movement toward Ryan. Marcus looked at the images. His 2 fingers rose toward his nose, then stopped halfway. He said Ryan had threatened to report him, not for violence, for bypassing a lockout step on the dock plate. Ryan had seen it before the fall. Marcus said he panicked, but the word did not match his behavior. He had not panicked toward help. He had panicked toward a cleaner story. He waited until the scene could look simple. Then he made the calm call. The accident was real. The fall was real. The delay was real too, and the official version had hidden the part that mattered most. Ryan was not found immediately. He was left alone while the story was prepared. Daniel rewrote the report that night. He did not write that calm meant guilt. That would be the same mistake in reverse. He wrote that calm had framed the evidence. A clean voice made the scene feel controlled. Controlled scenes make people stop asking basic questions. Where was the caller standing? What should the microphone have heard? What changed when the body supposedly moved? People think deception is found in emotion. In reality, deception often hides in selection. The speaker chooses useful facts. The listener supplies the missing picture. That is confirmation bias at work. A reasonable story becomes easier to protect. Every correct detail makes the wrong assumption stronger. The address was correct. The gate was correct. The injury was real, so everyone filled in the rest. Daniel added one line near the end. Emergency recordings should be reviewed against environment, not just words, not just timestamps. Words can be prepared. Timestamps can look clean, but rooms, phones, floors, and bodies leave pressure marks. When those marks do not match, the story is not finished. Ryan survived, but he did not return that month. His locker stayed taped shut. His name remained on the shift board. No one erased it. Marcus was suspended pending review. The company called it a personnel matter. Police called it failure to render aid. The plant reopened after 2 days. The floor looked normal too quickly. Fresh paint covered the rail. New tape marked the dock edge. A reminder poster went up beside the time clock. Report hazards immediately. Call for help immediately. Do not move injured coworkers unless directed. Daniel read it once and kept walking. Later, Lena asked for the final file. She played the call again in her office. The same calm voice filled the room. Address, gate, Breathing. Useful words in perfect order. This time, she did not hear competence first. She heard the space around it. No footsteps, no cloth, no floor, no hurry toward a man on concrete. She stopped the recording before the end. For a dispatcher, panic was never the only danger. Sometimes the most dangerous voice was controlled enough to make everyone stop listening.